During the war all kinds of troops are involved: artillery, infantry, armored troops and many others. Some of them openly go on the attack, and some of them remain in the shadows, but invisibly help their comrades. These are snipers. In the Soviet Union in the 1930s began mass training of shooters. Shooting sport quickly became popular, and in 1932 in the USSR appeared the title Voroshilov Shooter, which by the early 40s was awarded to about 7 million Soviet citizens. The Red Army formed sniper platoons, which were pre-trained in the Moscow region at the Vistral courses. Methods of small arms combat cadets were taught by Lieutenant General G.F. Morozov. Theoretical knowledge was necessarily honed in practice during military exercises. The command strictly controlled the availability of necessary uniforms and serviceable weapons. Soviet snipers used Mosin rifle and in rare cases Tokarev semi-automatic rifle. After the beginning of the Great Patriotic War, the need for marksmen increased and fighters began to be trained not only at special courses, but also in the regiments themselves on an accelerated program. In the NKVD troops there was a special training of fighters. Shooters, after studying the theory, were sent to the combat zone for 10 to 20 days to hone their skills in real frontline conditions. In 1942 the combat regulations of the infantry defined the range of combat tasks that snipers had to solve at the front. The main task was to destroy enemy snipers, officers, military equipment and all strategically important targets. Tracer bullet and other ways to point infantry and artillery targets not vulnerable to bullets. There was a separate squad of riflemen who were exclusively engaged in tracking down and destroying enemy snipers. The fighters tracked the enemy both at a close range of 500 meters and at a long range of 800 meters. Thus, the Soviet snipers had excellent training and the best weapons of the time for accurate shooting. German troops began to train special snipers in late 1942. The soldiers were trained according to Soviet manuals and training films, which could be obtained with great difficulty, so they managed to reach the level of training corresponding to the opponent only by 1944. German riflemen were armed with G98 rifles and Mauser 98K carbines, but these weapons were imperfect, so the snipers were happy to use Mosin rifles obtained in battle. The Germans fired at close ranges. As the Wehrmacht Army manual stated, weapons with telescopic sights operate accurately only at a distance of 300 meters and hit the target in the body, not in the head, as the probability of hitting the target increased from the first shot. The target was 100% incapacitated, and in such a short time the enemy could not discover the sniper's location. All snipers in Hitler's army fell into two categories: amateurs, ordinary soldiers who could shoot well, professionals, trained shooters armed with rifles with telescopic sights. German snipers mainly worked in pairs. One tracked the target and the other fired at it. The main targets were the commanders of military units, because after their destruction the army became disoriented and most often retreated.